Okay, so hi students, welcome to week 12. I know like this is now in the video form, but I hope you can still learn from our lectures. So today we'll be talking about idioms, and idioms are a very important part for English because a lot of times idioms are the special verbs, the special phrases that people use when uh, basically when they are in special occasions. And English idioms, proverbs, and expressions. So idioms, proverbs, and expressions are synonyms. So they are a very important part of everyday English. They come up all the time in both written and spoken English. Because idioms don't always make sense literally, you'll need to familiarize yourself with the meaning and usage of each idiom. That may seem like a lot of work, but learning idioms is fun, especially when you compare English idioms to the idioms in your own language. So on the picture to the right are some small examples of English idioms. The first one says, cat got your tongue. And on the picture, you might think that it's an actual cat that got your tongue. But in fact, it means that you cannot speak. So in like, for example, in a class, when the teacher asks you a question, but you don't know how to answer it, and then you were just standing there like saying nothing, the teacher might just might just ask you, "Cat got your tongue," which means she's asking you cannot speak up. Yeah. And the second example over there is called "snug as a bug in a rug." So again, in the picture, we see a bug inside a rug, which doesn't really mean the true meaning of this idiom. Instead, it means warm and cozy. So imagine on a cold winter day, you're staying in your house which is very warm, and then you can say, I snug as a bug in a rug. Something that we also need to pay attention to over here is how the rhyme of this idiom works. It's like snug as a bug in a rug. So there are three words that end with ug, and then like three words has the pronunciation which is kind of interesting because it is also very easy to memorize. All right, so the third example we have is called go to the extra mile. And go to the extra mile refers to, well, when people are running in a very long race, and then after running a lot of laps, they want to go to the extra mile, which means they should make an extra effort, or means they need to work even more to get something better. So an example is when somebody worked for a very long time, but they still have some job to do. So they say, I need to go to the extra mile to get the job done. All right. Another example we have is called butterflies in my stomach. And from the literal meaning, you might think that there are actual butterflies that got into your stomach, which would be pretty horrible. But of course, that is not the real meaning of this idiom. In fact, it means you feel very nervous. So again, a very typical example is in a class when you were going to make a presentation in front of your teacher and our students. You can say that I have butterflies in my stomach, which means I am very nervous. I don't know what to do. Okay, and then we have to go down in flames. Think about it, like what will go down in flames? Something that's burning, right? So that's why like to go down in flames means something went seriously wrong. That's how things will go down in flames. Uh, so when a classmate asks you, how does your test go? Like how did you do on your test? You can say that, well, it went down in flames to say I did really bad on the test. So for the final example of on a picture, we have once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon is, so just think about it. Like how many times would you see a blue moon in the sky? It's almost impossible, right? That's why once in a blue moon means something rarely happens. Uh, so maybe how often can I get a very high score, maybe like that. And then you can say once in a blue moon, which means I rarely get a high score. So yeah, these are the 6 idioms in this picture, and I would stay here for like maybe a minute. So you can like take your notes or something like that. All right. So can somebody like take over me? Adam or Rotron? Rotron, feel free to take over.
Okay, yeah. So here's another idiom. A blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise means a good thing that seemed bad at first. So the origin of the idiom is a blessing in disguise is believed to be around the mid 1700s. However, scholars are yet to pin down the first usage of this term. The earliest instance of the term found in print was a 1746 work by English writer James Hervey titled Reflections on a Flower Garden. There is no evidence that he coined this phrase. Example, my car broke down again, but maybe it was a blessing in disguise. I've been wasting too much time driving around anyways. So basically, a blessing in disguise is like something that seemed bad at first, but it's actually a good thing. So yeah, another example would be like maybe studying for this test seemed like really boring and bad, but like, I don't know, you did really well, and that could be a blessing in disguise, right? Can we go on to the next slide? Here's another one. It's called a dime in a dozen. A dime a dozen, sorry. A dime of a dozen means something that is very common, not rare at all. The origin of this expression, a dime a dozen, as a figure of speech rather than an actual cost, can be found in early 20th century America. A very early example comes from a 1931 edition of the Northern Miner newspaper. Caners, the old-timer said, is just an overgrown clown. As for the others, Schauf, Bear, Paulino, Risco, Campolo, they're nothing but a dime a dozen fighters. So basically a dime a dozen means like, think like, so a dozen means 12 of something. So I think like they're only paying maybe a dime for like a dozen of these things, which is a lot. So maybe like it's really cheap and like plentiful, like you have a lot of it. So that's what, and it's like not worth a lot. I think that's basically what it means. Can we go to the next slide? Here's another one, miss the boat. This phrase often means when something is too late and someone loses the opportunity to do something special. Example, he can't get his application in early enough, so he missed the boat. So if you're like gonna go on like a ship and you come to like the dock way too late and the boat's already gone, you've missed the boat and you can't get back on because they're not going to turn around for you. And so when you use this phrase, it's like in life, like if you're late to something, you miss the opportunity and the boat's already sailed, so you can't really, you've lost your opportunity to get on the boat. So yeah, next slide. No pain, no gain. This is a very common idiom, which means you have to work for what you want. Example, John, this exercise is too difficult. Tom, yeah, but it'll help you lose weight. As they say, no pain, no gain. So this basically means like if you want to achieve something, you got to work hard for it. Even if it like causes pain or like it's hard and stressful. If you don't like, if you don't suffer through this pain, you won't gain anything. So yeah. Next slide. On the ball, this phrase means knowledgeable and competent, alert, in command of senses, attentive, understands the situation well, quick to understand and react to the situation. Example, I couldn't sleep well last night, so I'm not on the ball today. So on the ball basically just means like, so if you're like trying to balance on a ball, it's pretty hard. You have to be very aware, you have to be balanced, you have to be calm. And so on the ball basically just means like you're doing pretty well right now. And so if you didn't sleep well last night in this example, that means you're not on the ball because you're sleepy and you're tired and you're not aware. Yeah, next slide.
Something that I want to add to, like as on the ball, because it does refer to a lot of things. But usually it describes when you feel well or you are in a very good shape. So as we can see on the example at the picture, so it says I've got to stay on the ball with my assignments since I'm taking an extra class this semester. Over here is because the student is taking one extra class. That's why he has to work extra hard and he has to do extra effort in order to do well. That's why on the ball typically means you're doing well despite some difficulties. Yeah, and that is like this is a very short list of what we have, but I will just like quickly go over most of them. So first of all, we have a blessing in disguise, which means something that seems bad but turns out to be pretty good. And then we have a dime a dozen, which means you're only picking a dime out of a dozen. And that means this is probably very cheap and unimportant at all. And then we have missed the boat, which means you are way too late and then you miss the opportunity to do something very good. And then a very common saying is no pain, no gain. And we often use it to describe losing weight because you need pain to get some gain. And you have to work hard for what you want to do. And finally, we have on the ball, which means you are in a very good shape. Yeah, so this is a very brief introduction to the idioms, and then we will talk about more idioms starting from next week. But I think right now, let's jump to some reading exercises. So please give me a second. All right, Bertrand, would you like to just like guide through this reading exercise?
Okay, so this is an article basically about Ernest Hemingway. I will read it first. Ernest Miller Hemingway was an American author and journalist. He was born in July 21st, 1899 in Oak Park, Illinois, where he was raised. He died on July 2nd, 1961 in Ketchum, Idaho, where he committed suicide. Hemingway's economical and understated style had a strong influence on 20th century fiction, while his life of adventure and his public image influenced later generations. Hemingway produced most of his work between the mid-1920s and the mid-1950s and won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1954. He published 7 novels, 6 short story collections, and 2 nonfiction works. 3 novels, 4 collections of short stories, and 3 nonfiction works were published posthumously. After finished high school, Hemingway was reported for a few months for the Kansas City Star before leaving for the Italian front to enlist with the World War One ambulance drivers, where he was wounded in 1918 and returned home. Uh, Hemingway's experiences in wartime formed the basis for his novel A Farewell to Arms. In 1922, he married Hadley Richardson, the first of his 4 wives. The couple moved to Paris. where he worked as a foreign correspondent and fell under the influence of the modernist writers and artists of the 1920s lost generation expatriate community. The Sun Also Rises, Hemingway's first novel, was published in 1926. Hemingway married Pauline what is this? Pfeiffer after his 1927 divorce from Hadley Richardson. However, this marriage was also unsuccessful and the couple divorced after Hemingway returned from the Spanish Civil War, where he had been a journalist. Drawing from his experience in the Spanish Civil War, Hemingway published For Whom the Bell Tolls. He married his third wife, Martha Gellhorn, in 1940. They separated when he met Mary Welsh in London during World War II. Shortly after the publication of The Old Man and the Sea, one of his masterpieces, in 1952, Hemingway went on safari to Africa, where he was almost killed in two successive plane crashes that left him in pain or ill health for much of the rest of his life. Hemingway had permanent residences in Key West, Florida, and Cuba during the 1930s and 1940s, but in 1959 he moved from Cuba to Ketchum, Idaho, where he put an end to his life in the summer of 1961. So then I'm gonna explain some words to you, like for example, suicide means at the end of the first paragraph. I mean the first paragraph. Uh, uh, the word suicide means that he simply killed himself, and fiction means something that is not real. Like you can say fictional, which means that is basically not real, and the word understated means that you describe a scene not that stressful. You like you don't really care this thing, but like you don't really care about this thing, but like this is a literary choice that you use to describe something with a very soft tone, but actually you want to emphasize it. And then the word at the end of the second paragraph, posthumously. So post means after something. It is a common prefix of the word. So like uh, like post-war period means a period after the war. So post and humus means something that's associated with uh, like that is basically means a faster dirt, but we also interpret it with as you after you die. So posthumously means after the death of someone.
And would you like to introduce the example given on this web?
Can we back to the article?
Okay, sure.
And then look at the second line of the third paragraph. So you can see the word Italian front. Italian front. We often say front is like a position to mean a position. That means like okay, front is front. We also use it to like to say to express a position, in this situation, like Italian front means actually means front line, which is kind of a place where a border where like the troops from different countries they confront each others, they fight with each others on this border, and the word enlist means like you recruit recruit people, you recruit often soldiers. So you enlist someone means like you call someone to be a soldier and to serve for the army. And ambulance means that like if you call 120 120 no like if you call if you like you if you are injured and you call like you call the police and the like there are often a car with a lot of doctors arrive and like they will transmit you to the hospital, and they will also like they also sounds weird because they need to raise the awareness of the others that they need to show that they are patients on their car. And wounded on next line means you're injured very hard. Like if you say you are wounded means you probably was like you're hurt by a bullet or by a knife. And and then the word expatriate after the word lost generation um, means a group of people who like they belong to this nation, but they actually but they actually live in that nation. So so if you are British, if you are British and you live in but you actually live in the United States, which means you are an expatriate. And then the word divorce. Divorce is kind of opposite to the word marriage because that means break a marriage. Like if you say you divorce from someone means you end your marriage with someone. Uh, and then the word masterpiece. Masterpiece means like a work that is very famous and very good. It was also it was always praised as a masterpiece. And successive after this line means that there are, you know, this thing happened right after that thing happened. Uh, and then the permanent residence, which basically means you gain the right as a like as a citizen of this country, but you don't actually belong to this country, and your nation your motherland isn't that country, but you can live in that country forever, and which is legal. So this is the end of the words interpretation. So this article basically like talks about the a very famous author, which who is called Hemingway, and probably the most famous work, and most of you probably heard of him, is is the book, or it was also it was also made to a movie, which is The Old Man and the Sea. and and then like I think this is pretty much it for this article. Okay, so now we can continue to the reading comprehension problems. So first one, Hemingway became a reporter after he had finished university. So I'll give you 2 minutes to think about it. Okay, time is up. So for the first question, Hemingway became a reporter after he had finished university. That is not correct because if you look at the third or the second paragraph, it says after finishing high school. High school isn't university, but he like just directly after finishing high school, he directly field of journalist. So this is incorrect. And the second problem is he enlisted as an ambulance driver in World War One. I'll give you 2 minutes to think about it. Okay, time is up. So this question is asking you that uh, Hemingway Hemingway enlisted as an ambulance driver in World War One. So if you look at the same paragraph as before, it says before leaving for the Italian front to enlist with the World War ambulance drivers, where he was wounded in 1918 and returned home. So this sentence means that he enlisted. I think it means that he enlisted in the World War One. Uh, because it says he was wounded after. So this problem is probably true. And then for the third question, he married 4 times. Is it true or false? It is basically written in details in the last 2 paragraphs. I'll give you 2 minutes on this. Okay, time is up. So for the third question, it says he married 4 times. This question is, I think it's a little tricky because if you look at the last 2 paragraphs, uh, so in the third paragraph, it says, for the first time, he married Hadley Richardson, the first of his 4 wives. And then in the fourth paragraph, it then said he married Pauline, and then after his divorce from Hadley Richardson. And then if you notice, this is Pauline is his like the second marriage of his, um, and then he married his third wife, Martha, which is the third marriage. But then, uh, but then it says he met Mary Welsh in London, but it didn't mention like married words like married or marriage. But actually, actually they did marry. So because it is said in the third paragraph, uh, the first of his 4 wives. So it implies that married with he actually married Mary Welsh. So this question is true. And the fourth question is it true that he died due to the plane crash? So this question is also a little tricky. I'll give you 2 minutes on this. Okay, time is up. So for the fourth question, it says he died due to a plane crash. You may be deceived to believe that it's true because in the last paragraph it did mention that like he was almost plane crashes that left him in pain or ill health for much of the rest of his life, because uh, because this sentence mentioned the phrase "the rest of his life." It implies that he was still alive after he the 2 plane crashes. So like the true reason why he died is in the first paragraph. It says he committed suicide, which means he killed himself. So this question it should be false.
Okay, so now let's move on to another short reading exercise. So I will be reading this exercise first, reading like this story first, and yeah. So it's a biography of Charles Dickens, and Charles Dickens, just like Ernest Hemingway, is also a very famous writer, but different from Hemingway. Charles Dickens comes from Britain, not the United States. So Charles Dickens was an English writer and a social critic. During his lifetime, his works enjoyed unprecedented popularity. He is now considered a literary genius because he created some of the world's best non-fictional characters and is regarded as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. His novels and short stories enjoy lasting popularity. So, in this paragraph, we have a lot of words that we need to talk about. First of all, what is a social critic? A social critic is a small group of people that critique or give advices to society in order to improve it. And then we have unprecedented. Unprecedented means never happening before. So this sentence, during his lifetime, his works enjoyed unprecedented popularity, means his works are very popular, which also means that like people like his books a lot. So for the next sentence, we have literary genius. So this word is actually a pun over here. A pun means a phrase or a word that has two meanings that can both work in a sentence. So a literary genius. First of all, the word literary can mean so the word literary can be linked to the word literal, which means true. And on the other hand, literary also means anything that is related to literature. And literature, if you do not know, means writing books. So he is now considered a literary genius, means he is very good at writing. And yeah, so it is true because he created some of the world's best known fictional characters. And so here is regarded as means he is known for, or he is remembered as. So he is remembered as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era, which is the which is the period of time when he lived. And then we have enjoy lasting popularity, which means his books are popular even till today. So even today, a lot of people enjoy reading his books. All right, so let's move on. His early life. Dickens was born on February 7, 1812, on Portsmouth, on the southern coast of England. His father, John Dickens, was a naval clerk who dreamed of becoming rich, and his mother, Elizabeth Barrow, aspired to be a teacher and a school director. But the family's financial situation had grown worse because John Dickens used to spend money dangerously beyond the family's means. Consequently, John was sent to prison for debt in 1824 when Charles was just 12 years old. So, as I said before, Charles Dickens was a British writer. So he was born in England, and his father was a naval clerk, which means he is a clerk that works that works on the sea, and then the word aspire here means that his mother really wants to be a teacher and a school director. In this sentence over here, we know that Charles Dickens' father, John Dickens, spent a lot of money and cannot earn enough money to support the family. And as a consequence, or as a result, John was sent to prison, and when Charles was only 12 years old. So he had a really rough childhood. After his father's imprisonment, Charles Dickens left school to work in a factory. Despite his lack of formal education, he edited a weekly journal for 20 years, wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and nonfiction articles, lectured and performed extensively, was an indefatigable letter writer, and campaigned vigorously for children's rights, education, and other social reforms. So again, we have a lot of words to talk about. First word is imprisonment. So in the word imprisonment, we see the word prison, and reading that his father was thrown into prison, we know that imprisonment means that somebody was in prison. So despite his lack of formal education means means although he was not educated very well, he worked for a weekly journal, which is something like a newspaper, for 20 years, and he wrote 15 novels, so 15 very long storybooks, 5 novellas, so five books of story that are not very long, and then hundreds of short stories and nonfiction articles. So he wrote a lot of stuff, and he lectured and performed extensively, was an indefatigable. This word is a very hard word, but right now all we have to know is indefatigable means that he is really good. Yeah. So indefatigable. It is a hard word, and it is a little bit hard to explain, but it generally means very good. And over here, he said, and campaigned vigorously for children's rights, education, and other social reforms. This part means that Charles Dickens advocates or speaks up for children, for education, and for social reforms. That is why, in the very beginning, we said that he is a social critic, because he did a lot of stuff in order to improve the society, to improve children, to improve education, and the society in all the forms. And now let us talk about his literary success, which means his success in literature, or his success in writing books. Dickens' literary success began with the 1836 serial publication of the Pickwick Papers. Within a few years, he had become an international literary celebrity, famous of his humor, satire, and keen observation of character and society. His novels, most published in monthly or weekly installments, pioneered the serial publication of narrative fiction, which became the dominant Victorian mode of novel publication. So over here, the biography describes how successful Dickens is in writing books and generally in literature. So first of all, he because of the serial publication, or which means this article or this book or like this newspaper, whatever it is published in a lot of times. So given it's called the Pickwick Papers, I believe that it refers to a newspaper. So Charles Dickens articles appear on a newspaper for a lot of times, and then because of that, he had become very famous. And over here, international literary celebrity. Celebrity means a person that is very famous. And international literary celebrity means that Charles Dickens is a writer that is very famous, not only in his own country, but even across the whole world. And we have a description over here. That's why Charles Dickens is very famous. His humor, satire, and keen observation of character and society. So humor means that someone is pretty funny, and satire means while he is funny, he also points out the issues of the society. And his keen observation means that he has a very clear view of the society that he lives in, and he points out the problems that the society has. And then we have a description here that his novels. This is a phrase that describes his novels, which is mostly published in monthly or weekly installments. So most of his novels are not published as whole books, but instead are each chapter of these stories are published on newspapers or like weekly magazines each week. And his writings pioneered in the serial publication of narrative fiction. So it means that Charles Dickens' works was one of the first examples of successful narrative fictions, which were published on those serial publications. And then over here it says which became the dominant Victorian mode of novel publication, means this mode of publication, like publicating stories every week on newspapers, on journals, was what became the most prominent or most or like the most common way for writers in his time to publish novels. Dickens was regarded as the literary colossus of his age. His 1843 novella, A Christmas Carol, remains popular and continues to inspire adaptations in every artistic genre. Oliver Twist and Great Expectations are also frequently adapted, and like many of his novels, evoke images of early Victorian London. His 1859 novel, A Tale of Two Cities, set in London and Paris, is his best known work of historical fiction. So, in this paragraph, the writer says that Dickens is a literary colossus, and colossus means a very great man or a very huge figure. So, by saying he's a literary colossus, the writer says that he is one of the most important writers of his age. And here he gives some examples. For example, A Christmas Carol, and novella means just a group of small stories. And this little book called A Christmas Carol is very popular and inspires adaptations in every artistic genre, which means not only in books but also in plays, in movies, and music, etc. And then it also gives out two other examples of his book, which is called Oliver Twist and Great Expectations. These two books are also very famous. And finally, there's another book called A Tale of Two Cities. This is also one of Charles Dickens' most well-known works. Dickens' creative genius has been praised by fellow writers, from Tolstoy to George Orwell and G.K. Chesterton, for its realism, comedy, prose style, unique characterizations, and social criticism. On the other hand, Oscar Wilde, Henry James, and Virginia Woolf complained of a lack of psychological depth, loose writing, and a vein of saccharine sentimentalism. The term Dickensian is used to describe something that is reminiscent of Dickens and his writings, such as poor social conditions or comically repulsive characters. In this paragraph, the writer describes different views of Dickens' works. A lot of people think that he is a really good writer because while some of his writings are funny, they reflect the social issues. But there are also some writers that complain of a lack of psychological depth, which means his writings are too shallow and does not really touch the readers a lot. And they also critique, or they also said that his writings are not good because the writings are too loose or not connected very well. In a vein of saccharine sentimentalism. So this means that like sometimes Dickens novels became too sentimental instead of driven by logic. But even though some people critique his style of writing, Dickens is still one of the favorites writers of his age and even till today. So finally, let's talk about his death. Charles Dickens died on June 9th, 1870, of a stroke. He was buried in Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. Thousands of mourners came to pay their respects at the grave and throw in flowers. So he died of a stroke, which is a heart disease. So he died of a heart disease. And he was buried, and a lot of people went to his grave and gave him flowers to say goodbye to him. Yeah. So this is a pretty challenging piece to read, but I wish I explained most details correctly. So if you do have any questions, I will pause over here for a second so you can pause the video and read this article by yourself. Okay, so if you're not finished, you can always pause the video and finish reading. So I'll move on over here. Okay, I wish you finished reading, and then let's do some exercises of comprehension. First of all, Dickens' family was rich. This is false because Dickens' father, as said over here, dreamed of becoming rich. And usually you dream of doing something because you are not that. Charles Dickens' father dreamed of becoming rich because he is not rich at all. The second question, he left school at an early age. This is correct because after his father's imprisonment, Charles was just 12 years old and he left school to work in a factory. That's why we can say that he left school very early. His novels were characterized by realism. So this is, let me see. I believe this is also true because Dickens' creative genius has been praised by fellow writers for its realism. This sentence means that a lot of people praise Charles Dickens or they like Charles Dickens because his novels show realism, and realism means that it really describes the real world. It is not fantasy, and it links to the real world. That is what realism is, and his novels are very real. So that is true. And finally, like the question that he died due to stroke is of course correct because over here he said Charles Dickens died on June 9th, 1870 of a stroke, which is a heart disease. So this is also true. And let's check our answers. All right, as you can see, all of these answers are correct. So I think that will conclude our session this week. And thank you again for watching our video, and I'll see you next week. Okay, peace out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So,
right.
And by the way, don't forget to come this Sunday, and we'll work on the slides.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.